seconds, high formation now. Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the end. It's caught! It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown official! Kelvin Benjamin. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Dustin, welcome back for another episode of Lateral Live. I'm Mike Settle. As I already said, that's Dustin Franklin. It's good to have you back, brother. Missed you last
it's good to be
weeks.
back.
Man, you came back at the right time because this week's slate of college football is absolutely freaking loaded, man. I have this thing where I call it a plant your ass Saturday. Not quite willing to go that far yet, but it's pretty dang close.
Yeah, it is. This is one of the stronger Saturdays we've had so far this year. And really the night slate, the 7:30 to 8 o'clock, man, there's some great games packed in tonight.
Absolutely. Even the noon slate looks better than a lot of other noon slates. There's some pretty big games there at noon or in that noon time frame, from 12 to 3. Real quick, really wasn't any kind of news in the college football world this week except for Georgia Southern firing Chad Lunsford. We don't really have to get big into that, but I do think that program had the chance to hire Jamie Chadwell. Just saying. Also, Carolina looks pretty good. That's all I'm saying. So you kind of missed the boat on that there, Georgia Southern.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's you can always beat yourself up and kick yourself. The problem is, or what you want to strive to do is not make the same mistake twice. So I don't know who they're going to hire, but they need to do their due diligence, and they have plenty of time to do it. Yeah,
that program's problem isn't so much Georgia Southern as it is Georgia State is now a threat. Coastal Carolina didn't exist when they were good. App State's a better program. There's a lot of programs in their area that are just better places to be. Georgia Southern's got a lot of work to do. Okay, so that was pretty much all the news, quote unquote, that we had this week. Last week, we found out a couple things that I think is important. Again, I said on last week's show, no one is really great this season, which I think makes for a fun year. It's not quite 2007 unless we see something that could happen later today. I'm sure you're excited for that one, but it's not quite there yet. But I will say, Clemson losing to NC State is something that we both kind of saw coming. It felt like a really good spot for the Wolfpack to rise up and actually do something for once. They tried to give the game away to Clemson, but they held. They went into overtime. They held, and now Clemson's looking at a 2-loss team, a 2-loss season, maybe more. That offense is really bad, Dustin.
It is. I mean, and they're going to get that loss to FS. Oh, never mind.
Never mind. No.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. But yeah, I think that's been the biggest shock of the college football season is how, for 2 years, really, we were told that DJ Uiagalelei is going to be the next best thing, that they're not going to miss a beat. But that Clemson offense is not it, man.
Yeah, and their offensive line is actually bad. Like, it's the worst unit on the field against a lot of teams that they're going to play. Now, our own Florida State, not one of those, because that would be Florida State's offensive line. But Florida State's defensive line will do well against Clemson's offensive line. I have no doubt about that. We'll talk about Florida State's defensive line later in the show. But, yeah, man, a lot of things are happening around the country where you look and say, does anybody want this thing? There's an undefeated Wake Forest. What the hell? Just in the Big 12, is Texas the best team in that league? It's possible.
It is possible, and I mean, you got a couple of unbeaten teams in the Big 12 playing today, and playing each other today, and I don't think either one of them are anything particularly special. We'll get into that when we get to the game, but yeah, I mean, that's Baylor and Oklahoma State I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, that's a wide open conference. I think Texas is actually the best team, despite some things that we've seen from them so far.
Well, the quarterback change after the Arkansas game has made a huge help, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. I think Oklahoma's offensive line is on borrowed time, man. They're bad. It's really weird. There's these teams that were used to having really good offensive lines: Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Clemson, even to an extent. And they just don't have it this year. They're not good up front, which is surprising to a lot of people. And by the way, as we know, there's no way to turn on that switch midseason for offensive line. It's either good or it's not. There's not a whole lot of wholesale changing that you can do there.
Yeah, trust me, we've seen plenty of that.
Yeah, man. All those teams have some interesting games today. I think Oklahoma really should have lost last week. West Virginia tuck their tail between their legs. I could not believe what happened there. But, I think Oklahoma needs to be really careful later today. Ohio State, they also don't look good. And I'm surprised by that because even though they lost to Oregon, I expected them to just that be the one game of the season where it's like, okay. But Tulsa, what in the hell happened to Ohio State? And I know that they didn't play Tulsa last week, but I'm just saying, like, this is a team that you expect to win the Big Ten, but not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. I think there's a team in the Big Ten that's going to give them a little bit of problem. And I know we've been burned before, Dustin. We've been burned before by the Michigan Wolverines, but man, they look good.
They do. And I mean, this is not – we were way off in the Big Ten, I feel like, so far. We expected Ohio State to be the team to beat and just kind of run away with the conference. C.J. Stroud needs to consider what he's going to do when he goes pro in something other than athletics. They got to make a change at quarterback. And Minnesota, how about Minnesota losing to Bowling Green last week? That was a head scratcher. Shout out to Bowling Green. I found out this past week that Bowling Green's defensive coordinator, I went to high school with his wife. I had no idea until this past week, but that's cool. That was cool to find out. So it was a good win for them.
Hey, boy, the boat's not quite rolling right now. It has a hole in the bottom.
Yeah, they lost a couple oars, but they'll bounce back. PJ Fleck's too good of a coach to, let it all fall apart after a bad loss. So they'll be fine.
All right, no more pussyfooting around, Dustin. Let's preview this Week 5 slate, baby. And to celebrate, I know it's only 9:25, but guess what, Dustin? Let's open it up, baby. It's freaking hashtag Miller time, baby.
Sponsor us, Miller Lite.
I wish you would. That'd be great. I'd love to make some money off this show. Okay, Dustin, are you ready to review or preview Week 5, an absolutely loaded slate? You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is a park your ass Saturday, so you better get some chores done before 12 o'clock hits, because after 12 o'clock hits, it's all football all the time.
Yeah, no, I agree. When we wrap this up, I'm going to turn on my Wolverhampton Wanderers soccer match, my English Premier League match, and then as soon as it's over, it's right into football all day.
Here we go. All right, let's go. Arkansas at Georgia, 12 o'clock, high noon kickoff, which kind of sucks for this game a little bit. I would have rather seen this game at night in between the hedges. Would have been a lot of fun to see, but still, really crazy environment. Game day will be there, so that's kind of, it's odd. Crazy things happen when game day is at noon games, as we saw Louisville and Florida State in 2016. That was not.
Why?
I'm sorry, I had to bring it up because I maybe the last time they were at a noon game. I think this will be a little bit different, though. Arkansas at Georgia, your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, this is just an absolutely egregious time slot for this game.
Absolutely.
Arkansas deserves more respect than this for what we've seen so far. And they also deserve more respect than an 18.5-point spread. Georgia's defense is stout, but here's some things to consider. So Georgia is 3-1 against the spread this year. Arkansas is 4-0 against the spread, though. KJ Jefferson and Traylon Smith, they're the keys to the game. Can they get the running game established against that Georgia defense? I don't know. It'll be a tough task to ask. No one's been able to do it really this year. Everyone on Arkansas's team, though, that has at least 5 carries on the season is averaging over 5 yards a rush. So they're the real deal. Georgia, they definitely look like a team that's destined for the playoffs. But that Clemson win is looking less and less impressive by the week. So what do we really got here? Arkansas's defensive backs, they're going to have the work cut out for him against JT Daniels. He's completing over 76% of his passes. He takes care of the ball.
Yep.
I do like Arkansas to cover that 18.5 points. But Georgia should win this one by around 10. Arkansas is close. Sam Pittman's doing a great job, but Georgia's, man, they're just too talented. They're too deep. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. This is a really fun game, though, partially because Arkansas is one of those teams that, man, what a great story. What a cool season. You got to show us a little more, though. And now they've shown us enough. Texas is a good win, I think. A&M's a good win, I think. They don't have to beat Georgia today to be considered one of the top 10 teams in the country, in my opinion. That's how highly I am on Georgia. I picked them in our preseason show to win the national championship. That would be their first one since 1980. So I'm going out on quite a limb, even though they're one of the more talented teams in the country. Fun game, man. When Arkansas hired Sam Pittman, everyone was kind of like, what in the world are they doing? Safe hire, blah, 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 blah.
it's worked out game busters. He's the perfect fit. You know, they picked him over some of these sexy G5 head coaches, which we know all too well what that's like. Yeah, man, and it's worked out really well. KJ Jefferson a little banged up, not fully healthy going into this game. I think that's going to hurt them. He's a big guy, hard to bring down, but I do think Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, and Devontae Wyatt will get after his ass. That Georgia defensive line is, dude, it's about 8-9 people deep, man, that will be playing in the NFL. The defensive line at Georgia was so good. Jermaine Johnson went to Florida State. He's a starter. He was in the rotation at Georgia, and he's a first, second round draft pick.
I was going to say he's the first round draft pick in my opinion. From what we've seen so far, he's first round draft pick, and he couldn't crack the starting rotation at Georgia.
Right.
That shows you how deep they are.
A fun story is the Briles offense, though. They looked really good in year 2 under Kendall Briles. I don't know how much longer he'll be there. I know his last name has a stigma, but there'll be some jobs opening up in the state of Texas. TCU may be open. We're going to get to that. Texas Tech may be open. We're going to get to that. So some interesting jobs could come open for Kendall Briles to kind of move on. But if you're an Arkansas fan, you kind of hope not, because what a perfect marriage that is. I kind of hope he just stays there and really keeps developing his offense and doesn't jump ship too quick. I like JT Daniels. My issue with him is he just isn't anything special. Yeah. He's okay. He's the better of anybody else they have, including Stetson Bennett, who looked really good against UAB, but come on now, that's UAB. He doesn't have a special arm. He doesn't do anything special with his legs, but he manages the game really well. He's going to try to get both tight ends involved, which is kind of their best weaponry. It reminds me of those Stanford teams that Andrew Luck had. Yeah, man, fun game, fun matchups, just as far as X's and O's. The trenches are going to be if you're a trench guy, if you're an offensive line, defensive line guy like myself, you're going to really love this game. If you're not, it's going to look bowling shoe ugly to me. I think Georgia wins, but I don't think they cover. So give me the dogs at home. But I don't think that's any disparaging, remarks against Arkansas, because one thing I will say, Dustin, Barry Odom could be a really big key to this game. He's probably the best DC in the country to me. He got a raw deal at Missouri as the head coach there, in my opinion. As I think we've kind of seen play out, their program was in disarray. I really like Barry Odom to scheme some stuff up for that Georgia offense today. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on here. We've got Texas at TCU. This game, I think it's 12 o'clock on ABC. Rivalry game, quote unquote, for one side of this anyway. I think TCU views this game as a much bigger deal than Texas does. But honestly, Texas should be taking this game very seriously, because the last however many years, TCU's had that ass. Like, I mean, there's no reason why Texas shouldn't be looking at this game like they would the Oklahoma game, in my opinion, because Gary Patterson has had their number. Texas needs this game to get the monkey off the back to me. This is the game where under Tom Herman, the Texas would trip up. First conference game for Texas since leaving the Big 12. They have a couple years, but they got one foot out the door there. Texas's offense put up 70-plus points last week against Texas Tech. I know that's a bad Texas Tech team, or we think they were undefeated. That's still a bad Texas Tech team. I don't care what anybody says. But this offense looks so much better since making the quarterback change to Casey Thompson. Bijan Robinson is able to do more things with a mobile quarterback, and Casey Thompson is bigger. He has a better arm. I'm not quite sure what Sarkisian was looking at in camp. Maybe he thought go with the young guy if all things are even, which is a good rule of thumb. But in this case, I think it's a much better offense with Casey Thompson at quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it. Casey Thompson taking over for Hudson Card is really that was a great change for Texas. Their offense is rolling now. Now, this game does feature quarterback play that's stellar on both sides of the ball. Max Duggan from TCU is a stud. Last year against Texas in the 33-31 win, he threw for 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he ran for 70 yards. Now, as good as Texas's offense has looked lately, the defense is still shaky as hell. Arkansas just ran all over Texas. Louisiana and Texas Tech passed all over Texas. So they need to find some consistency there. Now, shaky as their defense has been, TCU's defense is worse. Cal and SMU just did what they wanted, and I expect Texas is going to do the same. You mentioned TCU has won 6 of 7 in this series, but I think that ends here. Texas wins and covers the 5 points they're favored by.
Yeah, TCU is 7-2 against Texas and joining the Big 12. That's pretty good for a team that doesn't view this game as a rival. I think that's a misconception. I think this game is absolutely a rivalry. Dustin, allow me to indulge you on a small rant against TCU head coach Gary Patterson, who we've shown respect for in the past. But I'd like to rescind that respect for just a minute. My man is a big-ass crybaby, dude. This man not only begging boosters in a press conference to pay his players more money for NIL so they won't transfer out of here, which, by the way, that's your job. Your job is to keep your players on your team on whatever it takes, whether that's making better NIL deals for them or convincing them to stay. You are the head coach. That is your responsibility, not Jim Smith that owns the broker business down the street. It's your job, okay? That's step number one. Step number two, this man whines and cries about SMU planting the flag on their field. My man, beat SMU. Beat them. And you won't have to worry about it. I know Jerry Kill got hurt, and we know the health of Jerry Kill. It's a very touchy subject. He has a situation where he has a lot of strokes randomly, so him getting hurt is a big thing. But some of that's on your players for trying to fight off SMU players for planting the flag. My man, all of it could have been avoided if you just, win the game. He's been crying every Monday presser. I just don't get it. I am convinced this is Gary Patterson's last season in Fort Worth. Partially because I think they're going to have a bad record by the end of this thing. I don't think they're very good. Their defense is bad, and when you're a defensive coach and your defense is bad, something's off there. Like you said, I think Max Duggan is a good quarterback. I just don't think their offense is enough for Texas today. I think the Texas secondary, who's been slight, they've been struggling a little bit. I think they step up today. Give me Texas to win and cover that game as well. Okay. Here's the other big game in this slate. I'm so stoked for this game, Dustin. I cannot wait to watch. Cincinnati on the road at Notre Dame, 2:30 on NBC. What a world we live in. This is a playoff elimination game in 2021. I don't think there's any doubt about that. If you're Cincinnati, you're the group of five darling. You remind me of Houston a couple years ago where they had a really good year before and they went into the year top 7 in the country, had some Power 5 games on the schedule. You win those games, take care of business, you're in the playoff. Cincinnati has a similar setup right now. They beat Indiana on the road. No matter what the game looked like in time, it was a good win. It's a double-digit win on the road against a Big Ten opponent. Here's your chance to really make a statement and say, we are for real. We are one of the best 4 teams in the country. Your initial thoughts, Cincinnati, Notre Dame.
So Cincinnati's 2-point favorites in this game. That alone blows my mind. Like, think about that. A team going into South Bend and being a group of 5 team going into South Bend and being favored by 2. Brian Kelly is going to execute some players today. So Notre Dame was able to force 4 interceptions last week from Graham Mertz, but you can't expect Desmond Ridder to do that. Desmond Ridder is a good quarterback. He'll be playing on Sundays one day, and Graham Mertz probably shouldn't even be playing on Saturdays. So there's a huge difference in quarterback play that Notre Dame's going to be facing. Jack Cohn was banged up last week, but he should be back, and he should play against the Cincinnati defense.
Still questionable as of this morning, but I agree with you. I think if Cohn's able to go, he's going to go. Yeah,
and he's got his work cut out for him. The Cincinnati defense has forced 6 interceptions the past 2 weeks, so that's impressive as well. Cincinnati, now something they're going to have to do is something they haven't been able to do all season, and that's pressure the quarterback.
Yeah, very bad.
They've only got 4 sacks so far on the season. So Cohn or whoever Notre Dame trots out there at quarterback, they're going to have their time, and they're going to have plenty of opportunity to work with a clean pocket. Now, a win here, like you said, would do huge for Cincinnati's case to make the playoffs. Likewise for Notre Dame, a win here would strengthen their case to make the playoffs. Yeah, because it is such a wide open year. Now, Notre Dame hasn't looked great this year. That Florida State win in overtime is looking worse and worse by the week.
Yes, it is.
We thought it was indicative of how good this Florida State team was going to be, but really it's more of an indictment on this Notre Dame team kind of being flat. But it's a home game against a Power 5, against a group of 5 team for Notre Dame. So I just can't pick them to lose this game. So I like them to win outright.
Okay. Like I said, a playoff elimination game, For sure. Desmond Ridder gets better and better every season he's been there.
Yes.
Their offense sputters early in games, even against bad teams, which I find to be kind of odd. They came out slow against Murray State. They came out slow against Indiana. They don't look great early, and then they kind of get it together once the offensive line realizes what the defensive line is doing. So there's some of that. And Notre Dame's defense is just not very good. I mean, there's really no other way to say that. If you watched the Wisconsin game last week, Wisconsin didn't score a lot of points, but they did move the ball. That's a bad Wisconsin offense. That score is not indicative of what that game was. It was a freaking fist fight until the very end when Notre Dame's defense started, creating turnovers and stuff like that. So I think Notre Dame's going to need a little bit more of that today. I think their defense is going to have to create plays and opportunities for their offense. Look, I think Cone looks human in this game. He looked like a Heisman Trophy candidate against Florida State's secondary. He even looked good against Toledo, to be honest. Some drop passes in that game. I think Cone each week that goes by looks more human. Marcus Freeman is the interesting thing in this game. Former Cincinnati defensive coordinator, now he's the Notre Dame defensive coordinator, potentially coach in waiting. Brian Kelly just randomly said that at the beginning of the season. No one's asked about it since. Kind of weird. Just saying. No one's talked about it. I don't get that. I think he's the coach in waiting. We'll never know. This is the first time they played since 1900. 1900 since Cincinnati and Notre Dame had played. That's kind of interesting. Jerome Ford is, to me, a key to this game. The rush defense of Notre Dame is bad. You can run on Notre Dame, and he's an Alabama transfer. Looks really good. I just need to see them get him the ball more if you're Cincinnati. I think that should be a game plan going into today. I'm going to disagree with you. We have our first disagreement. I like Cincinnati to go on the road in South Bend, flex their chest a little bit, and win this game. If they don't, I don't think it's an indictment on what Luke Fickell and that program are. But if they do, I think it says more. Here's a good question for you, Dustin, then we'll move on.
Okay.
Does a win by Cincinnati say more about Cincinnati or more about Notre Dame? Tough question.
I think it says more about Cincinnati because Notre Dame, I only picked them because of it being Notre Dame, not this Notre Dame team, just in general. Notre Dame, I just can't see them losing at home to the Cincinnati team. If Cincinnati pulls this off, I think it speaks volumes to them, and it shows that they are for real. Luke Fickell deserves more respect than he gets. For some reason, he doesn't get the respect. He doesn't get brought up enough when a major job comes open. Looking at you, Florida State. And so
seriously.
Yeah. So I think it speaks more to Cincinnati because we kind of expect this Notre Dame team to fall flat because of what we've seen so far this season.
One more key stat, then we'll move on to rapid fire. The Notre Dame rushing offense, Dustin, last in the country at 0.63 yards per play, which is ridiculous because Kyron Williams is an NFL running back, man. That's a really good running back you have there. One more thing. Notre Dame's offensive line is bad. It's piss poor. They got the transfer for Marshall that everybody loved, K. Madden. He stinks. Sorry, he's not very good. I've watched him play 3 games now, and he has not won his one-on-ones. I don't know what's going on there, but they're definitely a step back. I know they lost a lot, but it's a huge step back from last season where they were the best offensive line in the country.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Okay, let's move on to some rapid fire here, which I have a few notes on this first game just because for some reason I'm high on this Michigan team, man. I think they look really good. Am I about to be burned? I don't know. Here we go. Michigan at Wisconsin, big noon Saturday game on Fox. Dustin, I like Michigan to win this game by a lot. For some reason, there's something wrong at Wisconsin with their offense. It's never been like the world on fire there, but Graham Mertz is bad. He's a bad. They let the wrong quarterback walk out the door in Madison. Holy smokes. He looks really bad. Their defense is really good. We both love Jim Leonhard as a coordinator, but I just think the Michigan offense has found something. I love what they do. It's nothing super fancy, but they're gotten away from 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They started throwing in some things that are actually modern with the times, which is good for Michigan. But really the story to me is the Michigan defense. I think they shut down a Wisconsin offense. I like Michigan to win by a pretty substantial amount.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin just came out and got boat raced by Notre Dame because of the turnovers that Graham Mertz had. 4 interceptions last week. I'll just mention, some quarterbacks are going to be playing on Sundays. He shouldn't even be playing on Saturdays. He's bad. Michigan is the underdog. They're 1.5 dogs in this game. I don't understand that. Michigan, big.
Tennessee at Missouri, 12 o'clock, SEC Network. Interesting game, if for nothing else than where are these two programs headed in the SEC East as far as in the future. I think I was a little too high on Missouri in the preseason. I think that showed itself last week against Boston College. There's a part of me that liked some of the stuff that Tennessee did last week against Florida, just kind of blew their opportunities late. This is going to be kind of going against every fiber of my being because I normally don't do this, Dustin. Give me the Vols on the road. Upset win.
Okay. So Missouri's defense is last in the SEC in total defense.
That's part of the reason why.
So that being said, I don't know which way to go in this game because I don't know which quarterback Tennessee is sending out there. If Hendon Hooker is healthy enough to start, I like Tennessee to
Me too.
win.
So do I.
If they throw Joe Milton out there, then I like Missouri to win and cover the 3-point spread. He is bad. Bad.
He is bad. They need to run him a lot. He's not like blazing speed, but he's hard to bring down. He creates weird movements in space, and he's just kind of hard to bring down. They need to have a package for him and just stick to that package. Especially against Missouri, who's not a very good defense. I think you could create some things. You hope Hooker's healthy though, because if he is, I really like Tennessee chances to go on the road and win that game, man.
Same.
Okay, it's not basketball season yet, but we have Duke at North Carolina, 12 o'clock, ESPN2. If it were a basketball game, I'd be stoked because I love watching these two teams play basketball. But we have a little football game here. Duke is really bad. Give me the Tar Heels to bounce back after a butt whooping last week against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, North Carolina's 19.5-point favorites. This is going to be the Sam Howell show.
I think they cover.
I do too.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the Sam Howell show. He's looked good ever since that Virginia Tech loss. He and Ty Chandler are going to have their way with that Duke defense. So give me the Tar Heels big.
Minnesota
at least.
Okay. Ooh, I like that. Minnesota at Purdue, 12 o'clock, Big Ten Network. These are two teams that I thought would be better by now, but they're not. I think Minnesota bounces back and gets a win on the road at Purdue, but it's tough, man. It's tough to pick a team to win after a loss against Bowling Green, but I'm sticking with the Gophers.
Yeah, they're Purdue's favored by 2.5 points. I picked Minnesota to win the Big Ten West. I stand by it. They look good against Ohio State. PJ Flex is too good of a team to not bounce back after that Bowling Green fluke. So I like Minnesota to win.
Louisville at Wake Forest. Who would have thought in the preseason this game would have such a big implication in the ACC race? 12:30. It says ESPN3, but I'm pretty sure that's that local, formerly known as the JP game of the week, Jefferson Pilot, the ACC version of that. I think is what we're getting here. I like Wake. I think they're really good. They have the luxury of having a bunch of super seniors, which age is definitely in their favor. I think Louisville's better than maybe I thought they would be. But if you look at the second half against Florida State last week, I know they took the foot off the gas a little bit. They didn't look very good. The Florida State defense shut them down in the second half. I think the Wake defense is pretty good. I like Wake to win at home.
Wake comes in as a 7-point favorite. I think this is going to be one of the better games of the day.
Me too.
It may not be just can't miss high power offense versus high power offense. It may not be a defense select. I think it's going to be a competitive game all the way through, though. Louisville's offense has looked good this season, but Wake is a complete team, I think. So I like Wake to win, but not cover. So Wake win in a close one.
Okay. All right. Hey, it's time to talk to our kids about a half-decent Wake Forest team. That's all I'm going to say. It's time.
Yeah, I just think it's funny because, for a long time, you've been on the Wake Forest. What is it you say you do here in the ACC?
And I've been right until now. Which, by the way, still across the board in all sports, what would you say you do here? You don't add anything. They have one good season. Dude, next year they may cream into the side of a mountain. So I don't know, man. Congrats on a good season, but now what?
I could see that happening because I don't think Dave Clawson's going to be there much longer. He is a fine coach.
They're also have a bunch of guys that have been there for 6 or 7 years. It's about time they walk out the door at some point. I'm sure they have a nice wake degree, which will make you a lot of money someday in something other than sports. So by all means, please leave so Florida State can beat you again. Okay, here we go. Next, the next time slot, 3:30, 6:30. Fun little slate here. Here's the game of the day for you. I know it. I see you smiling. Ole Miss at Alabama, 3:30 CBS game. This game will have a big fight feel, man. I love this 3:30 CBS SEC game. Kiffin versus Saban. Here we come again. There's nothing that Lane Kiffin loves more than trying to take it to Nick Saban. Unsuccessful last year, but still looked really good on offense as far. Put up the most points against Bama all season long, 48 points, I believe. That's quite a bit. Their defense gave up something in the 60s. I'll say this, and then I'll let you go because I know you have more to say. I think the Ole Miss defense is so much improved from last season. Year 2 under DJ Durkin, despite what I think of him as a human being, I think he's a piece of crap. He's a really good defensive coordinator. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think both quarterbacks are the story of the game, man. Matt Corral, really good story. Kind of highly talented, come out of high school, but has some behavioral problems. Looks like he's turned his life around in a really good way under Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. He made the best choice for him. He's a stud at quarterback, and I think has a potential to play on Sundays. I really do. I mean, he beat out John Plumlee, who's a good quarterback. I think that's a pretty good sign. I think Bryce Young is better than he showed against Florida. That's a really tough game to go on the road and win. Hostile environment. Top 10 team in the country. I'm not knocking them for that game too much, man. They got some young receivers, but they're going to have to get the ball into Williams and Mechie's hands more. That they've got 2 of the best tight ends in the country, which is what a luxury to have when Florida State doesn't have any tight ends. Well, Alabama's got 2 of the best in the country. So frustrating. I will say this. Ole Miss had Bama's number under Hugh Freeze for whatever reason, just matchup problems. They've had the really lucky catch off of someone's helmet that one time on the road at Bama, by the way. I think this game comes down to the trenches. Can Ole Miss block up long enough against Bama's defensive line? I love this game. I think it's a lot of fun. I think Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin is a good story. This may be the only game I pick Ole Miss to lose. I'm going to pick them to lose it, though, Dustin. It's really hard. You know me. I try to go with sure things as much as I can. Bama at home is really hard to bet against. I think Ole Miss makes it a fun game.
Done before.
I know it has. But it's hard to go against it from a logic standpoint. I want Ole Miss to win. I'm just going to say that. I'm not supposed to because I want chaos, and chaos is great. And 2007 is my favorite season in college football history, and all that was chaos. I want a little more of that here, but I can't in all good conscience pick it. Give me Bama at home to win, but I think Ole Miss covers.
Yeah, Ole Miss comes in as 14.5-point underdogs, and I think that's just flat out disrespectful. The Florida game last week proved that Alabama is vulnerable.
Yeah,
they do have their flaws, and they're the best team in the country. So if they have their flaws, I think that Ole Miss, they have the firepower on offense that they can keep up with anything Bama's going to do. Last year it was 63-48 Bama, but it was really closer than that for most of the game. Matty Corral, you mentioned. I said it before. I said it on our preview show to start the season. I think he's going to be in the Heisman conversation, and he has. His name has been floated out there already. He's looked phenomenal. And you mentioned the defense. Ole Miss's defense is greatly improved from last year. So don't expect them to come out and give up 63 points to Bryce Young. But Bama is still Bama. They still have a litany of 5 stars and 4 stars and just a terrific arsenal to throw at you. So here's my prediction. It's a crazy prediction, but here I'm saying it now, and I'm going to stick with it. Alabama will win this game.
Okay.
But not by 14.5. It's going to be somewhere in the 7 to 9 point range. They win, but Ole Miss wins out and still makes the playoffs. Joey Freshwater leads Ole Miss to the playoffs.
So you're putting 2 SEC West teams in the playoff.
Unfortunately.
So you're
just because of how wide.
Are you putting 3 SEC teams in the playoff?
I told you begin.
So you don't think Georgia's a playoff team?
I told you beginning of the season. I don't think Georgia's a playoff team.
Okay.
Because I think that Alabama's going to beat Georgia in the SEC championship, and they're going to do it by a margin that says, maybe Georgia's not for real. So there's what it is.
I tell you what, I hope that's the SEC title game we get. That is something that talk about an anxiety game for Georgia fans. That's something. Honestly, if you're a Georgia fan, I'd be pulling for Alabama to lose a couple games along the way, to be honest. Okay, here's a fun game in the Pac-12. If I'm an Oregon fan, Dustin, this game scares the piss out of me because for whatever reason, Palo Alto is where the Ducks' dreams have gone to die over the years. This game is 3:30 ABC, Oregon at Stanford. Look, man, Pac-12 needs Oregon to win this game. If you're Pac-12 conference officials, call everything in Oregon's favor. Screw the Stanford. They're done. They're 2-2. Who cares? Keep Oregon in the playoff race. What are you doing? Call everything in their favor. No holds. Who cares how Oregon holds? No one cares, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Cheat to win, baby. Little Eddie Guerrero. No. They're going for their first 5-0 start since 2013, Dustin, which if you remember, 2013, Thursday night game on the road at Stanford when people thought Oregon was better than Florida State that year. Yeah. Oregon went on the road and dropped an egg on the road at Stanford, and then the rest they say is history. I think this game comes down to how physical Oregon can be at the point of attack against Stanford's defensive line, which I think is still really good. And in situations, it looked kind of bad against Kansas State, but it's looked better since then. They need to get the ball to CJ Verdell. I think they can. If you go back and watch that Ohio State game, which I know Ohio State's defense is suspect at best, but I love the physicality from Oregon's offensive line. They're big. They lay on you. They move you out of the way. And I think CJ Verdell, one of the best running backs in the country. Here's the fun thing, though. Verone McKinley is a Sunday player on Oregon's defense. And Oregon's defense leads the country in takeaways. He had 2 last week. Last 4 times that Oregon was ranked, Stanford won this game. To me, this game comes down to the physicality of Oregon at the point of attack and how well does A.J. Brown play, the quarterback at Oregon. I just think Oregon's too much firepower, so give me the Ducks on the road to win.
Yeah, Oregon comes in 8-point favorites. They lead the nation in takeaways with 13. So they're going to make life difficult for Stanford's offense. But Stanford's offense takes care of the ball. They haven't had a turnover in their last 3 games. Oregon has forced 3 or more in every game this season except for that Ohio State win. So the key to this game is going to be Anthony Brown and Tanner McKee. That's Oregon and Stanford's quarterbacks, and which defense can cause the most discomfort and cause the turnovers. The answer is Oregon. I think the 8 points is a little too low. I think that's disrespectful because of what we've seen from Oregon so far this season. So, I like Oregon to win by a couple of touchdowns.
Well, the reason that Ohio State game was a little surprising isn't so much what we thought of Oregon, but they win a close one against Fresno State, which I think looks better now than it did at the time. I think Fresno State's a good football team.
They are.
But they haven't looked really good outside of that Ohio State game. I mean, they've looked good, but they really showed what they could be when they're all locked in and everything. They had a couple defensive players down in that game, still shut down Ohio State's offense until the 4th quarter. Like, I need to see another performance like that. I think today's a really good time to go in and do that. It's not a hostile environment in Stanford. The students at Stanford are doing a lot of other things, man, like solving the world's problems. So you got a good chance to get a road win here. Okay, Texas Tech at West Virginia. Fun Big 12 game. This is 3:30 ESPN2. I think Texas Tech is bad. I know they were 3-0 going into last week. Go and look at the box scores. Go and look at who they beat and how they won those games. I think they're a pretty bad football team. Matt Wells still coaching for a job, by the way, because, again, Jeff Traylor's sitting there at UTSA. Kendall Briles is sitting there at Arkansas. There's some potential candidates to take the Texas Tech and TCU jobs, which I think is a very interesting offseason note. They go on the road in Morgantown. I think this West Virginia team, Dustin, and correct me if I'm wrong, 3 plays away from being 4-0. I mean, you look at the Maryland game, 1 big pass play late in that game decided it. You look at last week, just a defensive gaffe by West Virginia. Otherwise, they beat Oklahoma in that game. They should have won. They were the better team for 3.5 quarters. Kind of blows my mind that they lost. So they're sitting there at 2-2. They have a win on the record against a maybe good Virginia Tech team. Here's the thing. I still think Texas Tech's the worst 3-1 team in the country. Tyler Shaw is out. The transfer from Oregon, he's out with a broken collarbone, so they'll have a backup quarterback. Texas lost 6 straight games on the road. That's not conducive to winning this game. I just think the West Virginia is a better football team, man. I think they win at home.
So Texas Tech, despite losing 70-35 last week, their offense was rolling in that game. They still put up over 500 yards of offense.
Yeah.
Now, West Virginia, they don't have the offense to keep up with that, but they do have the defense to try to stifle that Texas Tech offense. If they can control the tempo and keep Texas Tech's quarterback uncomfortable, they should win this, but not going to happen. Not so fast, my friend. Opposite sides of the fence. I think Texas Tech's offense is too high-powered.
Okay.
I like Texas Tech to win outright. They're a 7-point underdog, so I like them to get the dub.
Okay. All right. Hey, it's good to have some disagreements. I just think the West Virginia defense is too good. Okay. Here's a fun game.
Yeah.
There's a couple anxiety bowls this weekend, as I like to call them. Here's an anxiety bowl. Florida on the road at Kentucky. Everything I've seen thus far this season says Florida should win this game and win comfortably, honestly. Because outside of the Louisiana Monroe game, which everyone, including myself and you, got a little excited about Kentucky. Okay, finally have an offense, which they do finally have an offense. They're running basically the exact same system as the LA Chargers do. Will Levis is a good quarterback. I think he has the potential to play on Sundays. I like their weapons. I think they're good. I think Kentucky will score points in this game. Their defense is good, but it's not that stifling, smothering Kentucky defense under Mark Stoops that we've been used to. If you remember that 10-11 win team a couple years ago when Benny Snell was the running back, that team had a really good defense to back it up. The year that Patrick Towles was the quarterback, if you remember that team, that was a fun Kentucky team. This team comes out slow, or they score first and they kind of settle in, things get figured out. On the flip side of that, Dustin, Florida is first of all, they're a top 10 team, no doubt. To me, last week's win is more important than the Alabama loss. Like, I know you could take a lot away. Oh, you played Bama so close down to the wire. That's a loss that can beat people twice. We've seen it before. In the past, Miami loses to Florida State, but let them beat them twice. Florida loses to Georgia, or Georgia loses to Florida, and they let them beat twice. So never want to let one loss become 2 losses. I think that's a good win out of Florida last week. I like the offense under Emory Jones. It's gotten better and better each week. They started doing some things he can do instead of trying to fit square peg in the round hole. Here's what I'll say, Dustin. Anthony Richardson comes back. I think you still need to use both quarterbacks. I have no doubt about that. Florida's going to try to run the ball, in my opinion. Shorten this game a little bit. Pierce is a beast. I think he's a Sunday running back for sure. UF has won the last 33 of 34 against Kentucky. The only win in that time, I believe, came under Dan Mullen's first year at the Swamp, which is a game Florida had in the bag. Now, we've seen a couple games in this series the last 6-7 years where Kentucky had 2-score leads in the fourth quarter and still found a way to lose. If you remember, this like the wide open guy waving at the quarterback in the end zone because Kentucky had 10 guys on the still funny to me. Look, I don't think this is the great Kentucky defense, but technically stats-wise, I believe they're number 2 or 3 in the SEC. That's an interesting matchup against Florida's offensive line. I just think Florida has too much talent. It's at Kentucky at night, going to be hard. I think Florida wins a closer game than people think.
So Florida comes in at 8.5-point favorites. They did win this matchup 34-10 last season, and they're 10-0 in their last 10 trips to Lexington. Kentucky is 4-2 against the spread in their last 6 games. Here's the thing. Florida can flat out run the ball. They're averaging over 300 yards per game on the ground. I think that's gonna spell disaster for Kentucky. Kentucky does have a solid defense. Then they're solid against the run. They're the number 2 defense in the SEC behind Georgia, like you mentioned. So, yeah, I agree. This Kentucky team is good. They're just not quite on the Florida level yet. when I don't even know if it's fair or safe to say yet, because I don't think you can be on the Florida level at Kentucky, no matter how good of a job Stoops has done there.
Right.
But I do like UF to cover and win.
Like, there's a part of me that just, again, I want to see chaos. It has nothing to do with how I feel about Florida as far as, being a Florida State fan, because quite frankly, Florida's good. I can admit when they're good. I think, again, top 10 team in the country. But I think there's some matchups here that Kentucky can win. I just think Florida has too much firepower. It'll be interesting, though. Night games there sometimes get a little tricky for some of these opponents. Okay, Dustin, let's go ahead and get to the rapid fire. Fun rapid fire game, by the way, here. Oklahoma at Kansas State. If you don't think Oklahoma fans are worried about this one, you're wrong. It's really hard to go win on the road at Manhattan. Skylar Thompson looks like he won't be playing, though. This is 3:30 on Fox. I think Oklahoma has a little bit of an epiphany here and starts doing some things on offense that actually work, because I think you need to stop letting Spencer Rattler throw 3 picks a game. He's taken himself out of the Heisman race and out of a first-round pick already. So you're going to have to do some different things on offense. Offensive line is a problem for Oklahoma, but I still like the Sooners to go win on the road. Close game, though.
Yeah, Oklahoma's 10.5-point favorites. Kansas State's defense is too stout to allow Oklahoma to cover, but I think Oklahoma wins. But it's going to be closer than the spread.
Tricky game coming up here, Dustin. Ohio State at Rutgers, 3:30, Big Ten Network. I'll say this. I'm picking Ohio State, but I don't feel good about it. I think the Rutgers defense is pretty solid. I think the Rutgers offense can expose some warts that we've already seen out of Ohio State. I just don't think they have quite enough talent yet to win this game, as we saw against Michigan last week. Although Rutgers came back, made that a game in the fourth quarter. So, if that's the standard right now, could be an interesting close game. I think Ohio State wins, but I don't like them comfortably at all.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both have expressed how high we are, or highly we think of the job that Greg Schiano's done at Rutgers and the direction that program's heading. It's Rutgers. It's the University of New Jersey.
Yeah.
But
Piscataway.
I still have my doubts about C.J. Stroud, though. I mean, I think Ohio State needs to make the quarterback change. But despite my doubts, Ohio State's still second in the country in total offense. So I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But Ohio State's favored by 15. I do like them to win and cover, and that's no hard feelings against Rutgers. I still am a big fan of what they're doing.
Nevada at Boise State, 3:30 FS1. Fun game. I'm a little disappointed in Nevada for losing that Kansas State game the way they did. Still like Carson Strong, a quarterback. Boise State, I know they have 2 losses. One's against Oklahoma, one's against UCF. Both of those games were late losses where they led in the second half. I'll just be honest. Last week, Boise State showed me against a pretty good Utah State team that they can still be Boise of old. I like Hank Bachmeier a lot, so give me Boise at home on the blue turf.
Okay. Boise's 6-point favorites in this, but I think Carson Strong's a difference maker. I like Nevada to win outright.
Okay, fun game there, by the way, the Mountain West.
Definitely.
Okay, I made you put this one on here, even though you didn't want to. Syracuse at Florida State, 3:30 ACC Network. By the way, the ACC Network is a bag of ass, and I know I'm not supposed to say that because future employment or whatever. Their broadcast television is terrible. They need some work. It's really, really bad. Anyway, half the country doesn't get the ACC Network because you won't do a deal with Comcast. Anyway, okay. Not to dive too deep into Florida State. They're an 0-4 team. We shouldn't spend a ton of time on them. One thing I like in this game for Florida State is the run defense. I think they've shown when they're locked in and they're not trailing by 30 points because the offense is not good. When they're locked in, they're hard to run the ball against. I think that's proof. I think we've seen that in enough games now, all 4 games, outside of a couple plays against Louisville where they were already down big and it kind of looked like they checked out. When healthy and fully engaged, Florida State's run defense is pretty damn good. Everything else on the field is a giant question mark, or it's already known as bad. Syracuse likes to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. If I were Syracuse, I'd start Tommy DeVito because he can actually throw the ball. And Florida State secondary is pretty bad. Doesn't look like they're going to do that, though. I pick Syracuse in our double fries, no sauce staff thing. I'm still going to stick with Syracuse on the road. There's just nothing that I've seen that can make me think Florida State can win a game until they actually do it. And this would be a good And by the way, Florida State, it's a good time to get the monkey off the back. This is not a good Syracuse team. I know they beat Liberty last week. That game was a little tricky. I don't think Liberty's as good as we thought either, by the way. Good Syracuse defense, though. So Florida State's offense probably going to struggle today. So give me Syracuse. I don't feel great about it, though.
I want someone to explain to me how Florida State's 4.5-point favorites in this game when they haven't won a game. Yeah, the logo still carries weight, but come on.
Helmet.
So FSU is 11-2 all time against Syracuse. That does not matter here. Syracuse is 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games. FSU is 4-12 against the spread in their last 16 games. So here's the thing. Mike Norvell, Dino Babers. Dino is a better coach. He's handicapped by a worse roster, but he is a better coach all around than Mike Norvell. Syracuse is going to win this game, and FSU is going to drive me to drinking worse than they already have. Thoughts and prayers welcome from my liver because – and you said we shouldn't spend much time on this game. I'm not going to spend a minute on this game. I'm not watching this game today. I am sick to my stomach. I'm tired of it. I've been called everything.
Same time as Ole Miss. Same time as Ole Miss.
Exactly. I've been called everything under the sun as far as being a fake fan, and I need to take my fandom to Boca Raton, which is next on the slate here, or I need to take my fandom to Oxford or be a Tennessee fan, all this, that, and the other. Listen, if I didn't feel so strong, if I wasn't so passionate, then I wouldn't be as outspoken against this sorry coaching staff as I am. All right, I'm done. I can't do it. Go ahead.
We do disagree there. I do think Syracuse wins today, though. I don't agree with you on the entire coaching staff. There's some changes I would make for sure.
Fire 'em.
And I don't agree. I don't agree that Dino Babers is a better head coach yet because I like what I saw out of Mike Norvell at Memphis. But
which one of them has won head-to-head against Dabo Swinney?
I understand. Well, technically, Mike Norvell's never played Dabo Swinney before. So, thanks, COVID. That's the one good thing you brought us was not an embarrassment last year against Clemson. Okay. I do think that's a close game. And by the way, if you're watching that game, it's going to be ugly. Those are 2 bad football teams, man. That's not a good football game. Okay.
If you're going to be watching that game, I want you to love yourself and put on something else.
Yes. Okay. Here's an in-state battle, baby. The Shula Bowl. FIU and FAU, by the way, no reason. You can do that all you want. No reason to take your talents there. They got their ass whooped last week against Air Force, and they shouldn't lose to Air Force with that roster. That is not good at all. I don't know what's happened down there. I thought they'd be a little bit better than they are. I just don't think FIU is very good, so give me the Owls to win at home.
Yeah, good luck trying to find this game on TV because it's not there.
It's not there.
You might be able to find it on C-SPAN or something, but or PBS. I don't know. This is bad. How's it 2021 and you're not going to put a game on TV anyway? A rivalry game, especially.
I think those are 2 bad teams.
FAU's 10.5-point favorites. They're going to win. They're going to cover. Go Owls. Go Willie. Let's go.
Yeah, you can pull for them all you want. That loss last week is an indictment, dude. I don't care what you say.
That's one loss. Come on.
Yeah, there's been some others. Anyway,
hey, we don't have them on the slate this week, but I want to take since we're right here in Conference USA, I just want to give a shout out to Will Healy.
Yes,
I'm all in. I'm all in. Will Healy.
You know I'm all in.
I know.
By the way, they're going to go and beat Big Bert at Illinois. I'm calling that now. I'm calling that right now. I don't, dude. Illinois won that one game against Nebraska, who I think is actually kind of decent, and has improved since then. Ever since they won that Nebraska game, they've gone straight down into the toilet. So I think Charlotte wins that game outright. Okay, let's get us out of here with the evening slate. Mississippi State at Texas A&M. Man, there was a lot of anxiety bowls this week. I talked about it. Here's another anxiety bowl. This is, man, if you're Jimbo Fisher, you have to win this game. Aggies need a bounce back win after the loss against Arkansas. The thing is they're playing an opponent that's been so inconsistent. Mississippi State likes to not play a half of football and then show up in the third, late in the third quarter. I'm like, okay, we're here now. Now we're ready to play. And I think part of that is just the offense that they run. The air raid, either it's hot early or hot late. I think that's just kind of the way the Mike Leach offensive system goes. This A&M offense is bad with Calzada at quarterback. I think if Haynes King were in, I might feel a little differently about this team. But we both know Jimbo Fisher's offense. I don't know if it's that much better. Does one quarterback make that much of a difference? You can't turn around and hand the ball off to Isaiah Spiller with that offensive line that's really, really good. I don't get that. They're trying to throw the ball too much. Run the ball. As we've known Jimbo Fisher to do, likes to throw a little more than his talent roster sometimes is conducive to. That's why we're throwing jet sweeps to Kelvin Benjamin. Anyway, look, Will Rogers leads the SEC in passing, of course. That's the offense. To me, the key to this game is A&M's or Mississippi State's O-line against A&M's defensive line. I think the Mississippi State defense is a little bit better than people think, but the A&M defense is the best unit on the field to me. I think that's what this game comes down to. I like A&M to win the game at home, but man, can't lose this game if you're Jimbo Fisher. Don't go lose this game.
Yeah, Mississippi State, they surprisingly have a decent defense.
They do. Yeah,
that's not something that we're used to saying or seeing from a Mike Leach coach team. And the defense, and they're holding teams to, they've held teams to 370 yards or less every game this season. That's impressive. The offense still isn't what we expect from Mike Leach, but they're getting closer. Like you mentioned, Will Rogers leading the SEC in passing. Okay, we expect that, but they still just don't look like what we saw him do at Washington State or what we saw him do at Texas Tech. But that being said, Texas A&M's offense is flat. I mean, they don't have an identity. Jimbo should establish the run early and control the clock. Now, will he get a little too pass happy? I don't know. It's a Texas A&M by 7 is the line. I like A&M to win by 10 or so.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a shockingly low scoring game.
Me too.
I think it's going to be in the 45-point total range.
By the way, hammer the under on this game. Hammer the under on Syracuse, Florida State. If you're looking for 2 surefire bets, you can win some money this week. Hammer those 2. I think you'll be okay. All right. Here's a Big 12 battle, which, by the way, I think it's time to put the narrative about Big 12 defenses to rest. Some really good defenses in this conference, Dustin. Oklahoma State's good. Baylor's pretty good. I think the Oklahoma defense is surprisingly good as well. So there's some good defenses here. Here's 2. Baylor at Oklahoma State, 7 o'clock, ESPN2, 2 unbeaten teams in the Big 12. I'm not sure how good Oklahoma State is. I know they're undefeated. Some of their games, they have a close win against Missouri State. They beat Boise State. It took some weird shenanigans to make that happen. Baylor gets a really good win against Iowa State last week. I think the Iowa State team's not quite what we thought, which is okay. Baylor may be a little bit better than we thought. Today's a good chance to prove it. They go on the road. It's really, when that place is rocking in Stillwater, it's a tough place to go play. To me, the key to the game is Abram Smith, the running back at Baylor. He's awesome. He's fun to watch play. The Baylor offensive line is much improved from last season and the short sample size we got there. I like Baylor to win this game. I'm high on Baylor. Man, let me tell you, I've come a long way. Because there was a part of me that just hated Baylor for past sins of former coaches there, what they let go on within that program. We're not going to get into that today. But I think this is a cool story. They revived themselves under Matt Rule. And I think here is a really good spot for Baylor to get the win. I like the Bears outright.
Yeah, so Oklahoma State's 3.5-point favorites, and this is a matchup of 2 unbeatens. But I don't, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think either one of these teams are true contenders just yet. Baylor did win last week against Iowa State, but did that speak more to them or Iowa State? We mentioned.
I think 2 things could be true at the same time with this one. I really
That's
do.
True. Well, we mentioned back in our preview show for the season, Matt Campbell. This is your season.
Frauds.
He comes out. He still can't beat Iowa. Then you drop one last week. Matt Campbell should have taken the money and run when all those schools were calling. Anyway.
Hey, this is just setting up his big win against Texas and Oklahoma. That's really what always happens here.
Oklahoma State, they're going to need a big game from Spencer Sanders. Now, Tulsa took Oklahoma State to their limit last week, and they got their doors blown off by Houston last night. So, Transitive Property says that Houston's going to come into the Big 12 and compete right away.
Yeah.
I don't think either team is especially good despite the regulars, but Baylor should win this one on the road. I agree with you. I think Dave Aranda,
he's building the right thing. They've got some things going for him.
Yeah.
They're just not there yet, but they're going to squeak this one out.
Sneaky low scoring game, not what you're used to in the Big 12. I think there's a chance to hit the under here. Last anxiety bowl of the day, Dustin. And I know everyone thinks, Brian Harsin's safe. First year at Auburn, no big deal. Do you know Auburn? Do you know what they're capable of doing? Okay. Not just on the field, but off the field. Some of his ways he's handled the COVID stuff is interesting, to be polite. Auburn on the road at LSU. By the way, Finley getting the start for Auburn, not Bo Nix, who was on LSU's roster last year. He's from Baton Rouge and was with LSU in the spring. So a little fun homecoming for that. That's a cool story. This is an anxiety game, man. Ed O has to win this game. He's coach. I hate to tell him. He's coaching for a job every week, man. Like that. And this is a stretch where LSU is more talented than almost any team they play, not named Alabama, which is in November. So before that game, they have the talent to win all the games in front of them, including the Florida game, just by recruiting rankings and everything else. So, man, Mac Johnson's looked really good in what he's been asked to do ever since the UCLA game anyway. I feel like he's kind of improved week by week. They're not running this slow, grainy offense anymore. They're, kind of spreading some things around, getting up to the line, snapping the ball quick. I like that. Auburn struggling last week with Georgia State was a head scratcher to me because I thought Auburn was taking a step in the right direction after their close game against Penn State on the road. But they just almost came out and laid an egg last week. Luckily, they got a win there, but they weren't the better team for almost 4 full quarters. I'm just sad that we don't get to see Road Bo Nix, Dustin, because Road Bo Nix is almost as good as me playing quarterback. That's really what we're looking at here when you look at the stats, the record, everything else. To me, Auburn has no business being ranked. I have no idea how they're ranked, and LSU isn't. That makes 0 sense to me. But okay. Auburn has not won in Baton Rouge in 20 years. LSU leads the nation in sacks. I think LSU has the more skill talent. Keyshawn Booty? I'm just going to say Booty because I know it's Butte or whatever because he's, from Louisiana, but it's more fun to say Booty. Auburn drilled LSU last year, though, dude. 48-11. Home teams won last 18 or the last 18 and 21 games. Give me the home team. I like the purple and gold Tigers, not the orange and blue Tigers. Give me LSU at home. I'm picking them until they give me a reason not to. Which I know the UCLA game cost some things, but I think they've kind of settled in, found what they are. I like LSU to win and win pretty comfortably.
Yeah, LSU's 3.5-point favorites. Auburn looked good in that loss against Penn State, but they should have lost to Georgia State. Yeah. So are they good or are they bad? What are you doing, Auburn? Make up your mind here. So I agree with what you're saying. Brian Harsin, Auburn is not the most patient school with things. So you can't come out and do this. You expect ups and downs under a new staff.
You fired a wide receiver coach in September in year 1.
Yeah. And so, they're just downright confusing this year. We expect that from a new coach staff, but what I don't think we expected at all was a quarterback controversy. It was Bo Nix's team, right? And now TJ Finley's taking the reins. It is interesting that he was with them he was with LSU in the spring, and now here he is
from Baton Rouge,
going into Baton Rouge and going into Death Valley, taking the team on the road. LSU's defense is pretty damn good. Now you mentioned the sack number. That's where they excel. They get to the quarterback better than anyone in the country. I do think Auburn has a bit of a hangover from the near disaster last week against Georgia State. So I like LSU to win and cover pretty easily. I look by at least a touchdown.
Okay. Fun game. Last game as far as the detail stuff. Arizona State at UCLA, 10:30 FS1. Little fun Pac-12 after dark. I don't know what to make of Arizona State. They had a good win against Colorado last week, but I don't think Colorado is very good. I think we're finding that out. I'm not sold on Arizona State being particularly great at any one thing. And one thing I do know is UCLA is really, really good at running the football down your throat with their giant offensive linemen. Like that, it's a really, they've got 2 really, really good running backs. Dorian Thompson-Robinson gets a little bit better each week. I like his game. To me, the game comes down to the trenches. I think Jaden Daniels is not safe with the ball like he should be. Interceptions, fumbles, etc. I just think the UCLA defensive line is able to get to him, create pressure, force some turnovers and some sacks. UCLA has outscored opponents 45-9 in the first quarter this season. I think that trend continues. Give me the Bruins at home pretty comfortably.
Yeah, they're just 3-point favorites. I think that number's a little low. None of Arizona State's wins have come against a team that's even half as potent as this UCLA offense. You've got a win against Southern Utah, a win against UNLV, and a win against Colorado. All three are pretty bad offenses. And UCLA's offense, like you said, they're jumping on people early. UCLA only allows 64 yards per game on the ground. That leads to Pac-12, and that's going to be a huge factor in this one. UCLA's not going to, or I'm sorry, Arizona State's not going to be able to run the ball. Jaden Daniels does turn the ball over, but I think he's going to have his moments and his opportunities against this UCLA defense. But I think the deciding factor or the X factor in this one, Arizona State commits 11 penalties per game. That's a lot. And I think that number is going to be higher in this one. I think UCLA is going to cause some havoc for them. So I like the Bruins by 10 or more.
I tend to agree with you there. All right, let's get the rapid fire, and then we'll get you out of here. We've already gone over an hour, which I like to talk a lot, so that's how that goes. All right, Liberty at UAB, 7 o'clock, CBS Sports Network. Listen, any other time I probably would pick Liberty, but I don't like what I saw out of them last week against Syracuse. That's not a very good Syracuse team. Kind of scared me off of them a little bit. UAB also opening a brand new stadium. Finally, they got the stadium they've wanted for 20 years. Well, they've had their program shut down. Now they have a state-of-the-art facility. I just think UAB is the better football team here, man. I like the Blazers.
UAB is 2-point favorites at home against Liberty. I think Malik Willis is going to be the difference, though. Liberty is going to bounce back from a loss they shouldn't have suffered against Syracuse last week. So I like Liberty to win.
Okay. All right. Boston College at Clemson, 7:30, ACC Network. The Clemson offense is bad. The Boston College offense is good. Boston College defense bad. Clemson defense good. So, yeah, you can kind of see where I'm going here. I just think Clemson's the more talented football team. I think the Boston College defense will be the cure to the woes of the Clemson offense. I like Clemson to win, but it wouldn't surprise me if this game was a little close for comfort at some point.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson's 15 points favorites. I think
the line's a little high to me.
This BC team is a good team. They're a good team.
Backup quarterback.
Yeah, I do think they keep it closer than the spread. I think Clemson's defense is too good, though, and I like Clemson to win by about 13 or so.
Indiana at Penn State, 7:30 ABC. This were last season. Great game. It's not last season, though. I think Penn State wins and wins big. I think they whoop Indiana's ass, especially after Indiana beat them last year, kind of got their season off to a weird start.
Yeah, you mentioned it was 36-35, but Indiana's nowhere near the team that they were last year. Michael Penix has taken a step back for whatever reason. Maybe it's the injury. Maybe he's still not 100%. I don't know. But, yeah, they're 12.5-point favorites, but I look for Penn State to win comfortably.
Fun game here in the Pac-12 if you're willing to stay up for it. 9 o'clock, Pac-12 Network, Washington at Oregon State. You know I ride with the Beavs. You know I ride with the Oregon State Beavers. By the way, building something really fun out there. Beat the dog snot out of USC last week. Wasn't close. The box score shows it. The score shows it. So I kind of let you know where I'm going here. I'm going with Oregon State at home, building something kind of cool. Which, are they world beaters? No. Is this a 10-win team in Oregon State? No. Could they compete? Make some things interesting in the Pac-12? I'm looking at you Thanksgiving weekend. Just saying. We're not allowed to call it the Civil War, but it's a Civil War. I'm just saying. Give me the Beavers to beat this terrible Washington offense at home.
Washington has looked better. They look better and better each week.
Yes, they have.
Oregon State comes in 2.5-point favorites at home. The thing that's going to spell disaster for the Huskies is Washington turns the ball over a lot, and Oregon State forces a lot of turnovers. So that's a bad combination for Washington. Give me Oregon State to win by a touchdown.
Love it. Okay. We've already gone over an hour. A lot of fun. Loaded slate. I highly recommend parking your ass on this Saturday with a cooler full of beer and enjoying the games. Dustin, any final thoughts before we get you out of here?
Please don't embarrass me in front of my lady, FSU.
I think you're kind of screwed there, pal. Although, again, it's a good chance to win. This Syracuse team's not good. Find a way. Make it work. I don't know. Anyway.
Last thought. Last thought, and I think we can agree on this. Hotty toddy, gosh almighty, who the hell are we? Flim flam, bam bam. Ole Miss, by damn. Let's go.
You know how I feel, Dustin. Roll Tide. We'll see you next week on The Lateral Live.
This is The Lateral.
Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going to go out of there. The Bears have won. And the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
17 seconds, high formation. Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the end. It's caught! It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown FSU! Kelvin Benjamin. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone.